It's a Mailbag Monday on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Should the Thunder add a veteran? What trades could they possibly make? And of course, we're talking draft, all on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Prize Picks, it's a Mailbag Monday episode. Who are some draft targets, some free agent targets for OKC, and do they need another veteran? Or should OKC trade for anyone on the market? How will they handle this salary cap that they have bestowed upon them this offseason? Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. Make sure that you're doing that. Let's dive into your mailbag questions. At Real Travion, who is your favorite option at 12? Grady Dick, Jerice Walker, Cason Wallace, Taylor Hendricks, Leonard Miller, and Ausar Thompson are some of my favorite options at 12. The thing is, like you listed all these names, which is great. I don't know if Grady Dick will be there at 12. I don't think that there's a chance that Walker or Hendricks will be there at 12. However, you can still list them because theoretically, if you did wind up with some of these players, it would be because you used the 12th pick in a trade, not necessarily to get those players back. But players who I think can legit be there at 12, Leonard Miller, I think will for sure be there at 12, like without question. Cason Wallace, I've heard that from one scout that there's no way he's going to be past 10 or even at 10 even. So take that for what it's worth, but that's just like a slight bit of intel. He could be there at 12, assuredly, if you look at the other mock drafts and everything, but there's a really high chance he's not there past 10. So Cason Wallace is a quick riser as well. Leonard Miller is like the name that you can say without couching, oh, if he's there, what if he doesn't fall? Ausar Thompson, I will say, another mixed bag. I told you Monday that he was falling, and in Mavs Draft's first mock draft, which was based on a lot of intel that he heard in Chicago, Ausar Thompson did fall to pick 12 to Oklahoma City. So maybe brush up on your OTE highlights just in case that he does fall on draft night. Again, would I bet on that to happen at our good friends over at FanDuel? No, but it is a chance, and there has been some rumblings of him falling. So just be aware of your surroundings and what's happening with the draft. But at 12, I did my Leonard Miller profile on Friday. Go back and listen to that if you have not already. I really like the idea of Leonard Miller. I like the idea of Cason Wallace as well. And we'll continue to do these draft profiles and talk about if they'd fall to 12, what their pathway to falling to 12 is, and kind of where the Thunder would need to be to get these guys. That's why we do that segment on the draft profiles of where they're ranked at, just so we can get an idea of where these prospects are ranked. I would say Grady Dick does have a shot to fall to 12, but Grady Dick is another guy that's really hard to judge. Like I've seen him in some places be linked as high as 6, and in some places be linked as low as 12, 13, 14. So it's tough to get a gauge on Grady Dick and what his range is. I think that the Thunder are in the sweet spot for Grady Dick. Like if Grady Dick just so happens to be their guy, and you know that I'm a big Grady Dick guy, I would lean towards him being surely available at 10. And 10's only 2 spots away. And then if he gets past 10, of course, at 11 with Orlando, makes a lot of sense because that they need some shooting help in Orlando. But it's interesting to see where he'd land at. You also asked Drew Timme reuniting with Chet Holmgren. Many people actually asked this. My guy Dominique did as well. Look, Drew Timme was awesome in college, and it'd be a fun storyline, and I'm all about stories as a content creator. But as a talent evaluator that I try to kind of watch these guys objectively without thinking of the storylines, Drew Timme is just not a very good player, and I don't think that he would make a substantial impact in the NBA. I think that the best you're looking at would be draft him at pick 50, put him on two-way deal, and see if he can become a two-way diamond in the rough. And ultimately, I would bet that he goes undrafted. I bet by the time you get through the entire draft order, you factor in both the players that we know from the college ranks, from G League Ignite, and from OTE, and then from overseas, that there's just not enough spots for Drew Timme, even though he seems like a great guy, and he did perform really well in college. I just don't think that he has any certain skill or reason, trait to be in the NBA. But it would be fun to reunite him and Chet, and it would be fun to have him on a two-way deal. I would love to watch him with the Blue a ton, and then see those spot minutes where he gets to play maybe with Chet in the NBA. That'd be a full circle moment. But I'm just not in on Drew Timme, even though I do like the idea of pairing him back with Chet. Does OKC use all three of these picks? I think that they'll walk away with three prospects, because if you stay at pick 50, that player is taking a two-way deal, and you have 3 two-way deals now, so you might as well get one that you really, really like and draft one at 50, and make sure that you kind of get them on your roster. Pick 37 would be a standard contract. Guys don't typically start taking two-way deals to the 40s. Maybe you can reach for a player, quote-unquote reach for a player, and convince them to do a two-way deal because you have a track record of taking care of your players. This is where reputation matters, right? You pick it at 37. It's not that far away from the range where guys start to take two-way deals, even though it's typically unheard of for a pick in the 30s to be on a two-way deal. Maybe you can convince the representation, look, this is just mechanically, we need you on a two-way deal right now to figure out who to let go of in a few months. Then, like we've done with all these other guys, we'll convert you to a standard deal. But I don't think that many agents would go for that, even at pick 37 specifically. So let's just bank on the idea that goes the traditional route of a standard deal. Obviously, your first-round pick has to be on a standard deal. That brings you to only having to make one move. As long as you don't re-sign Sarge, you'd only have to make one additional roster move, and you get 3 prospects in here to try to cycle through and see who can hit, who can stick. So I'd imagine that the Thunder will do that and will bring in 3 prospects. Now, it also could look a bit different, right? It could look like pick 50 plus pick 12 or higher, plus you buy back into the first round and have a first-round pick instead of pick 37. I'm not going to say that they're going to pick these 3 exact slots, but I would bet that they come away with 3 prospects if we were going to do it that way. So those were all great questions from Real Trey Beyond. The next question comes from @Swanson27A. Is Trey Man fixable? He's fun to watch, and I like him, but I'm afraid that he will be traded before he gets things turned around. Yeah, that's the cold reality of the business, right? And that's what Mark and Sam has been preparing the players for, been preparing the media for, the fan base for. They've been really open with, we want this roster full of 17 competitive guys that aren't all going to make it. They're all going to want to make it. They're all going to want to be here on the other side of this rebuild, but they're not all going to get there. They're not all going to get to that other side. So the ones that do get there, going to really appreciate it, going to really, you'll have earned it, blah, blah, blah. So Trey Man, I love Trey Man. I love his attitude. I think that he's a great guy, and also he has taken everything in stride with his minutes fluctuation, with being sent to the G League. He's taken that very seriously and has improved upon each assignment to the G League, which is, not the easiest thing in the world for a once prized prospect that was drafted in the first round. Like, we can admit that kind of could be an ego bruiser, but instead Trey Man took it in stride and was able to make the best of the situation. And he understands, hey, underperformed this year. I'm better than I showed this year, and he's kind of, it appears, based upon his exit interview that we were at a few weeks ago, that he is taking this all in stride to get better and to just continue to work. I think it is fixable. I think that the majority of the time he's making the right decisions. The ball's just not going in the hoop, which is a double-edged sword, because if you're making all the right decisions and the ball's not going in the hoop, is that bad luck over the course of a full season? Or is that just, you can't get it going, you can't get it done at the NBA level? I think he can play at the NBA level. I think that the expectation of him should just be a bench scorer, and he can find a really good home somewhere, even if it's in Oklahoma City. If I had to guess Trey Man's future outlook, it would be, he's in Oklahoma City this coming year, and he either booms or he looks like he did last year, and it's time for just a change of scenery for each side at that point. But I think it is fixable just in general. And you're right, it could be after he's traded or after he signs with a new team down the line. The Thunder will have to make a decision on a roster spot if they bring in 3 picks this year, and that's without even touching free agency or trades or anything else. So it'll be interesting to see what they do come roster movement, come the draft, and everything else that they have going on. Coming up, we'll talk about Ousmane Dieng. We'll talk about the Thunder's picks this summer, what they're going to do with them both in the trade route and in the draft, and so much more. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is awesome, and it's where you want to be. Prize Picks is there for you to make these games so much fun. Go to prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app, download it today, and use the code LOCKEDON. When you do, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. What Prize Picks is daily fantasy to make these games fun and enjoyable, but it's just you versus their projected numbers. You look at these games, right? So coming up tonight, you're going to see the Lakers and Nuggets play. And you just say, look, will LeBron get more or less than 22.5 points? Will Jokic get more or less than 9.5 assists? And you guess whichever side that you want to. If you're right, you can win 25 times your money on any entry. You pick 2 to 6 players. It's that easy and that awesome. So go check it out today by going to prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Get a 100% deposit match up to $100. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder and all of your mailbag questions. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from for free, including on YouTube, to make sure you do not miss an episode. Tomorrow, we're going to have our Kason Wallace draft profile, who, again, I've heard that he will be in the top 10 this year. We'll see if that actually comes true come draft night, but we'll talk about him tomorrow. We're also going to talk with Richard Stamen at Mavs Draft on Twitter sometime this week to talk about his experience in Chicago at the NBA Draft Combine, who are the risers and fallers at the Combine, and then we'll continue on with our draft profiles throughout the week as well. So, Kason Wallace tomorrow. Who do you want to hear from past that this week on the Locked On Thunder podcast? Drop that below in the comment section or on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. At Peanut Butter, hopes for Ousmane Dieng next year. We did trade 3 first-round picks for him after all. I would say, firstly, about the 3 first-round picks. A lot of those picks were fake firsts, and even if they do convey, the Thunder have a plan for Usman Chang, and his plan was not in any way supposed to be a guy like Jalen Williams' plan. They are in 2 totally different areas of their basketball life, even though they were picked just 1 pick apart. So the only common denominator between Ousmane Dieng and Jalen Williams is the fact that they were picked 1 pick apart. Jalen Williams is 22 years old. Ousmane Dieng is 20 years old and spent the majority of this season as a 19-year-old. I think that with Ousmane Dieng, you are looking at a guy that just turned 20 today, as I'm recording this, just turned 20 today, and was extremely raw, was always supposed to be a project player who needed some time to develop and nurture his raw skills, and a player that the Thunder had zeroed in on since he was 16 years old and circled him as a guy that they really like and really wanted to be in Oklahoma City. When you factor all of that in, he's on schedule. He got better day in and day out this year, had to deal with that injury to his wrist, both in Summer League and then another injury that was unrelated to Summer League in season to his wrist while he was playing some really good basketball, by the way, at the time of that second wrist injury. I think ultimately, if you didn't have the comparison factor of like, whoa, well, this late lottery pick was an all-rookie team member and made a late push for Rookie of the Year and was runner-up for the award. If you didn't have that comparison factor, I would think that we'd look at Ousmane Chang a lot differently than what we look at him as right now. Ousmane was great for what he was supposed to be. He was awesome as a player in the G League, and he really got better in the G League game to game. There were times where he was floating around, but there was more times than not where he was looking like the player you drafted in the lottery. And the NBA, he showed signs of that with his great defense that did translate right away in the NBA. Had that play where he just takes the ball away from Steph Curry, which you can find on every clip of Ousmane Chang out there. I think that there's a little bit of too much pressure on Ousmane Chang. He's on track. He hasn't fallen behind. I think that the sentiment is he's fallen behind. I don't think that he has truly fallen behind. At Sportsman, will OKC use a lot of their picks this summer to go get a superstar? No. The sense that I get is that the Thunder, and the right thing to do also, but also the sense that I get, the Thunder are very confident in their ability to grow together and grow this core. I would not expect them to go make some trade for a superstar this summer. Sam Presti has surprised us all before, but I would imagine they're going to keep on growing internally and developing for now. And I think that that's not a bad thing. I don't think that them not going to trade for a superstar this year would be kicking the can down the road or a failure or anything. The Thunder are in a unique circumstance where they won 40 games last year. They weren't supposed to. That's great. You do not want to make a move like this before you have all the information. And right now, you don't have all the information. What's Ousmane Dieng going to be, which we just talked about? Chet Holmgren is coming back from injury. You've never seen him play in the NBA, much less a full season in the NBA. We don't even know what Chet Holmgren's going to need next to him. What's going to complement him extremely well. Like, this team is not yet flushed out to the point where they're a superstar away. It feels that way. And if you go on 2K right now and load up a franchise mode, you can go trade for a superstar and win a championship in 2K for sure. The issue is that stuff doesn't work in practice. It works in, virtual reality. It doesn't work in reality. If you went and traded all these first-round picks for this superstar, it changes your cap space. It changes your ability, or more hamstrings. You're less flexible in that way. And these future first-round picks are not just ways to go get a superstar. It's also ways to keep your roster at a cost control whenever you pay the core. When you pay the core, you're going to need cost control players on these first-round picks to help you flush out a roster, so you're not hamstrung by paying your better players as their contracts come up, which is going to be before you know it. The windows are never as big as you think they are in any sport. So I don't think that they're going to go all in and push for a superstar this offseason. I don't think that it would make a ton of sense to do that. I wouldn't make a move like that until you see what Chet Holmgren is. And I'm not somebody who thinks that they should never make a move like that. I think that there's going to be a time and place where I will call for them to make a move like this. It's not this summer, though. You got to give Chet at least 1 year. Because the worst thing you can do is look like Minnesota. The worst thing you can do is go all in because you got a little bit of success, and then you get a player that does not fit with Chet Holmgren at all, which is the hardest thing to do, pairing a center with somebody, and it crowds the pain, it crowds the offensive flow. That hurts and hinders SGA. That hurts and impacts the rest of the team. Like, that pairing, that 5-4 pairing, has to be perfect in Oklahoma City, especially as you have a superstar who dominates in the mid-range and dominates at the rim. So I do not think that this is the right move until we see what Chet can do as an NBA player. He shot 40% from three in college. He's going to be a floor spacer. He's going to be a center. We know all that in the idea of what that all should look like, but we don't know in actuality what he needs. At 150, Guacamole, if you had to make two trades using the 12th pick and future first-round picks, what would they be? So let's start with the first trade. The first trade I would make is I would try to use 12 and the Jazz pick next year. That's top 10 protected. I'd give 12 and the Jazz their pick back for 9. I'd go up to 9. At 9, you're for sure going to get one of the guys that you love. And this is thrusting upon love to the Thunder, because this would be me being in the GM chair. I love, for the Thunder, Taylor Hendricks and Grady Dick and Jerice Walker. I don't think that Walker will be there at 9 at all, but I think that Taylor Hendricks and or Grady Dick will be there at 9. And so, with that being said, I would move up to 9 to make sure I get one of those guys that I think would fit seamlessly in Oklahoma City. I've already done draft profile on all three of those names, so you can go back and listen to those and why I think that they fit with OKC, but I do that first trade. Pick 12, plus the Jazz pick next year for pick 9. The Jazz move back a little bit in this year's draft class, but gain the flexibility of next year not having the pressure upon, hey, we really got to be in that top 10 or else we lose our first round pick, and it kind of hurts the rebuild a tad. So they gain the flexibility of if they do not shock the world again this season, which even as they shocked the world, they had to pack it up and finish with the 9th pick. And lottery balls could have suggested they went backwards if you lead up to the lottery system. You get that flexibility back of having your own pick, which you can then just fully bottom out if you need to, and try to get one of the better talents in next year's draft class, which is a weak draft class. It's a weak one, But it's still some top talent in there, I think, for next year, like Cody Williams, for example, who all of you are familiar with, being Jada's brother. So that's what I would do with the first trade. Second trade, I love this draft class, so I would just buy back into the first round using maybe pick 37 plus a future first-round pick. I'd buy back into the first round to a team that needs to move out of the first round, whether it be for salary cap reasons or roster spot reasons, whatever the reasons are. I would move up to the first round and get another talent in the first round of this draft class. I think that this draft class is really, really good, and it has a lot of gems in it later on in the first round as well. So that's what I would do if I was in the GM chair. At 150 guacamole. We just answered that question. Sorry. At call me Glop35. What is the best Shea outfit this season? I don't know if this is cheating because it technically wasn't like in season or like at an NBA or Thunder related event, but his Met Gala fit was incredible. At I used to be cool 69. Nice. What is keeping Mitchich from coming over to the Thunder now that they're a playoff team? Is there any chance he can be included in a trade to move up in the draft? Folks, he's 29 years old. He is 29 years old. I believe he was injured a little bit this year. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. He's shown no true signs of wanting to come over. He's used it mainly as a leverage play. To put it in like Oklahoma terms, it's kind of like Mike Gundy always saying, well, I'm going to take the Tennessee job just to get a pay raise at OSU. I don't think that he's serious about the NBA. And why would he be? I don't think that any team would give him a starting role, especially not the Thunder. And I don't think that he's into coming off the bench at the NBA level. And he's 29. You would rather just kind of keep what you have going right here than Mitchell, I think. I think Mitchell is a great player, but I think that he values playing overseas more than playing in the NBA. But who knows? Maybe this is the summer it actually happens, but quite honestly, it's fatiguing to always be talking about Mitchich whenever nothing ever happens with Mitchich. It's like the boy who cried wolf. But technically, yeah, they could trade his draft rights if a team just thinks that he'd come over for them and not for OKC. At Brandon, what do you think this roster looks like come next year? So opening day next year, not this time next year. Yeah, I would say that the roster looks exactly like it does right now, only you add 3 prospects, one of them on a two-way deal, one of them in the spot that Saric left behind, because I don't think that they'll re-sign him as of this moment. That's just me guessing, by the way. And then the way you get the third prospect on the standard deal, second prospect on the standard deal, would be Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I really do. I like him whenever we've talked. I like him as a player. I think he has a lot of potential, but he's a bit redundant. And I said that a year ago on draft night, whenever they drafted Jay Will. Look, this is a move that is redundant and that puts internal competition on your bigs, and Jay Will won that competition. And so I think that JRE would be the odd man out here to make room. However, another option would be Lindy Waters, who's on a club option that you can just decline, and it makes for a better salary wave, if you will, or an easier salary transaction. So I'd actually lean Lindy Waters to just kind of decline that club option, which is what you did to Eugene too, only Lindy got to finish the season out in OKC. So I think that's kind of going to be how it all comes to fruition there. Coming up, we'll talk about could the Thunder bring back Eugene or any of these other players on a two-way deal that were left behind, plus the draft. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. You everydayers can expect a Kason Wallace draft profile tomorrow, so subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from. At Hughesling Ryan, can the Thunder bring back any of their recent players that left on a two-way deal, specifically Ty Jerome, Eugene Omoruyi, Vit Krejci? So, Ty Jerome, no. He has 4 years played in the NBA, which I believe makes him ineligible for a two-way deal. Eugene and Vit, sure. And I think that Eugene would make some sense because the team just really loved being around Eugene. And Eugene obviously loved being around the team. And there's now 3 two-way deals. And if he doesn't have anything better out there, which I hope he does, but if he doesn't have anything better out there contractually, bring him back on a two-way deal. That'd make a lot of sense for each side. He was very valuable in spot minutes and also very good for the Blues. So I'd love it. I'd love Eugene back. But yes, they technically could bring them back. Now, at Hughesling Ryan, also, it sounds like Jalen Williams and Bradin Podzemski are friends. Do you think the Thunder could trade back into the first round to add him? Yes, they are friends, and they do talk a lot. And J-Dub has been talking a lot this season about Podzemski becoming a riser in the draft, and he has become a riser in the draft. I've heard that He'll be in the mid-20s at worst in this draft. So sounds like he's gotten good feedback on being a first-round pick this year, which is great. And yeah, I think that I love his playmaking. I love his shot making from beyond the arc, and I think he's a much better athlete than what people think he is. So I'd love the Thunder to get back in the first and get Podzemski if they're able to. We'll see if that actually happens on draft night. At GagaFan93, do you think Grady Dick is there at 12? I would bet no, but it's not like a firm no, as you can tell. Like Jerice Walker, firm no. He's not going to be there at 12. Grady Dick just has too many places where he would fit to say it's a hard no. Yes, Dallas is more than likely going to trade that draft pick at 10. So it won't be the Mavericks drafting at 10. But whoever fills the hole at 10 is going to need a shooter like Grady Dick, who's one of the best in the draft class. So like that 10 slot is still an option. I think that Orlando would heavily benefit from a shooter in this draft. And Grady Dick, in my opinion, is the best shooter in the draft. So at 11, that makes a ton of sense. And then there's always the random draft day surprises, which takes care of many of the picks ahead of 10 and 11. So there's a shot he's there at 12 for sure, but I think that there's also some reasons to believe he will not be there at 12. But he's kind of right in that range of pick 12, which is why I really, really like him for OKC. I've done a draft profile on him if you're interested to go back and listen to. Let's talk with at Owalet462. Will the Thunder take on expiring contracts such as Tobias Harris to get more assets? I would not rule this out. I think that the Thunder still need assets. Again, people think that you can have too many first-round picks. You can't, especially as the new CBA rules penalize teams for signing these big contracts with their own players. So they're going to be hamstrung, and they're going to need to get cost-controlled talent. And also, the Thunder have a bunch of cap. They have a bunch of cap room. And Sam Presti is not one to allow resources to go to waste. And so when you look at the Thunder, who have the fourth in the league in cap space at $32.2 million, according to Keith Smith, NBA, of Spotrac, they're going to use that in some way. Now, it won't be to acquire a superstar. It won't be to go break the bank and go sign a big free agent. But I think that they'll use it in this way. Like they take on a salary, they get a first-round pick or something for it, and then boom. You either just let the guy sit at home, you waive him, or you bring him in, who cares? But the bottom line is you got another asset for that asset of salary cap. Any news on the new arena plan? Nope. Clemente Almanza, I believe it was, asked Sam Presti about the new arena, and he didn't say anything. Mayor Holt, I'm sure, will have another, I don't know if they're called press conferences in the political sphere, but press conference or keynote or whatever it's called this summer as he did last summer. I believe it's the annual thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it there. At Clemente Ekofu, Zac Edey or Drew Timme. So I've bashed Drew Timme accidentally enough in the earlier segment. I don't think that he has like an NBA trait. I do think, however, of the two, like if you told me the Thunder are going to take one of these two at pick 50, they're going to do it, but they'll take your input on which one to pick. I would tell them to pick Zac Edey. Not because I believe he's going to be some starter or like even a rotational player, but because he at least provides you something. I think he's a little bit more mobile than he gets credit for. He at least provides you something that could be used in a pinch. Like, Boban is not an NBA rotational player, but Rick Carlisle and the Mavericks used Boban to throw off the Clippers in a playoff series because it's a weird matchup. So Zac Edey can at least give you some weird matchup time, and we know the Thunder have a head coach on the sidelines who can capitalize on weird matchups. So I would kind of side with Zac Edey there of the two, but I don't think that either one of them will particularly be impactful at the NBA level. At John S.A. 1962, do the Thunder need more vets like Kenrich Williams, for example? Well, it's tough to say. And this topic is a little bit weird whenever you're not like in the locker room day in and day out. But we know from stories that Mark and players have said of like Kenrich Williams grabs him by the shirt collar and lines him out, okay? The thing is, we forget Kenrich Williams was a throw-in to the Steven Adams trade, like a literal throw-in who was on a non-guaranteed deal who everyone projected would be cut by OKC. But yet he is somebody who became a leader of this team and showed the guys what to do and how to play and how to play hard and brought that intensity. So it's not necessarily about what your status is in the league, or how many years you've been in the league, or who you've been around and played with in the league. Either you have it or you don't. Either you have that ability to be a leader or you don't. And Kenrich Williams could have just been quiet and shy and happy to be there, that he kind of survived through the whole throw-in piece of this trade. But he didn't. He was a vocal guy that helped the team. And that's a skill set that Kenrich Williams has. And if you would have, I said that to say this, on the day that they traded Steven Adams to New Orleans and he was a throw into that deal, nobody would have said, the Thunder got that vet. They got that vet in Kenny Hustle to set the example. But he, in turn, was a vet in that trade. So I don't think you need to go out there and get a grizzled vet to lead the team where, like, we know that's what his role is. It just happens naturally to me. And I think that at this point, even though they're still young in our eyes, because we've watched them grow, at this point, SGA has been around the block and around a lot of good players and a lot of great players, and he will embrace the fact that he's an all-NBA player, a superstar max player, and somebody that these guys look up to. He's going to be a leader. I think that Josh Giddey has a lot of those leader tendencies also. I think that Jalen Williams has a great chance here to bridge the gap of, like, hey, I'm still cool, I'm still young, I still go on social media, and, like, I know what all you young rookies are into, but at this juncture in the game, or at this juncture in the season, we need to do this or that or this, and that kind of bridge the gap between the roster. Like, I think that all these guys bring some sort of veteran presence where you don't need to go out there and get someone because you just need a veteran. I think that the veteran stuff is a bit overstated in terms of, like, playing experience, because the guy we point to as the veteran of this team had little to no playing experience in the NBA and was undrafted and was someone who, just kind of hung around and was a throw into that deal. Now, obviously, the Thunder did not view him as a throw in because they kept him around, and not only that, they developed him, and not only that, even after only seeing him play in New Orleans for 85 games through 2 years, they developed him and held on to him even as they had offers that were very enticing at the trade deadline a couple of times, and they held on to him through that, and Kenrich Williams, wants to be here. By everything I've been told, Kenrich Williams loves being in Oklahoma City. He said it publicly. He said it privately. It's not an act. Like, he loves being here and loves being in this location, in this team, in this environment. So, like, that's great. But again, on the day that they traded for Kenny Hustle, nobody said, that's the veteran. So I don't think that the Thunder need to make a move where we go, that's the veteran, right? They just need to make a move that's good for basketball. And if they just so happen to be somebody who brings leadership and stuff, that's great too. That's great too. But I think everything should be focused on improving the basketball team for the Thunder right now. Let me know if you have any more questions down below on YouTube and on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. And until tomorrow, whenever we do our Case on Wallace draft profile and projection, be good and be good to one another.